So I've been asked for a few updates. The main problem I've been having with the mower is I'm getting through a lot of blade holders. Yeah. So what happens is this connects to the shaft under the mower. That goes in there, and you've got a screw bolt, that goes through that hole and ties it onto the shaft. And if this was a push mower, any imbalance in that blade and it shakes the mower, and if you're holding onto it, you're sort of compelled to turn it off. It's not nice. It tells you something's gone wrong, and you turn the mower off and you have a look. The problem with the remote control mower is that when something goes wrong, you can be meters away from it, and all you can really rely on is your hearing. And this is a discipline that I'm having great trouble with myself, so best of luck. Is that if you hear something strange, shut it off and go and have a look. You're going to save yourself a lot of heartache, you're going to save yourself a lot of time. So far, through not doing that, I've got through at least 4 or 5 of these, and that's the blade holder and this. Yep. I'm in New Zealand and I can get these. The only issue is that the keyway in here is 4mm and the keyway on the shaft is 3/16. So there's a difference there, and I've got round that by making a keyway that's half 4mm and half 3/16. But not everybody can do that, and if you haven't got a friend with a machine shop who is handy with a file, then that's maybe not going to be an option for you. You can order these from Vigorun Tech with the 3/16 key, and they do send you a spare key with it as well, which is nice. So once again, if you're buying the mower new, part of your spare kits, I'd have 5 of these, because I'd have 5 of them, and when you get down to 2, I'd order some more. So that's been my main problem. I've been trying to figure out why that problem is, and my problem is I tighten these blades up too much. Yeah, so I don't like this. I don't like the fact that blade can move. Yeah, so I tighten those up as if my life depends on it, and I'm wrong. Okay, I'm absolutely wrong. I should not be doing that. Okay, these need to get out of the way. The problem is when they get out of the way, they fold in like that. The whole machine becomes imbalanced, and then it starts working imbalanced on this hold here. And once it manages to waggle that nut free, then you start getting all the mess that starts to happen. Yeah, so you'll hear that imbalance because it makes a nasty little tink 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 and the vibration noises go up through the roof. One of my wishes for the mower is that they put a silencer on the engine so you can hear the cutting and the movement of the machine better, but that's just my wish. Right. So anyway, so it gets unbalanced like that underneath, and as I say, if you're on a walk behind mower and it did that, you'd feel it and you'd shut it off right away. But you have to listen, and if you hear that, you can stop it, you can drive it over to yourself, or you can go to it, pull the spark plug, get underneath it, and most of the time you can unfold that and away you go, and you'll see why that happened. Normally happens to me when I hit a root or just something I hadn't seen, but tree roots they'll fold those in so quick it's untrue. Need to get to it, you need to unfold it. And the other thing that I've taken to doing is the bolt that goes in there. I put some thread tight on just to stop it from waggling through, and I've also put a spring washer on as well, and that's working for me at the moment. The last cut I did, I had an incident where something bad happened. I heard it, drove it over to myself, thought, oh, here we go, another blade holder. But much to my joy, all that happened is that had folded in, and I unfolded and away I went. And when I take that one off, I'll show you, but the other blade on that one, I mean, it's so loose, it's untrue. Yeah, and it's still cutting. Anyway, all that said, yeah, today what I want to do is I want to try and use one of these. Yeah, so it's the same, it's another mash port holder. This is off my walk behind mower that I had before, sorry, the remote control mower, and as you can see it's a bit rusty, so I'm going to take this out and clean it, and then I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to take these are 18-inch blades, and I'm going to put these 19-inch blades on. So I mean, you can see they're just about half an inch longer, which is what it will be. So I'll be back in a bit once I've cleaned that. So I've just had a bit of a clean on that, just to get rid of the muck and the rust, but as you can see underneath the blades it still hangs on to a bit. So I'm going to drop those blades off. Now it's either a 15 or a 14. It's 15. These are nylocks, so you have to go all the way. In that one. Off. I'll just go and do the bits where that blade came off now. Won't be a minute. So I have some replacement blades here. I'm going to put 4 on. I shouldn't need that. And this is where I started to get confused, and then I got less confused. But I think these are recessed blades, so it's telling me that the tension washer, which is these things, goes on straight after, goes onto the bolt head, so it goes onto the bolt first, so it drops straight on there. But the most important thing is 5, I think, which is don't over tighten the nylock nuts. This may cause metal fatigue. Blades should be able to move under sprung washer tension. So that's where I've been going wrong in the past. I tighten them up if my life depends on it. They hit a root, they spin out the way, they get stuck because they're so tight and can't get back out again. I don't hear the change, I carry on mowing. 10-15 minutes later it's shaking itself so much that then the bolts got loose. Once the bolt gets loose, it moves away from these and it starts chopping them off, and the next thing is you've got a ruined blade holder and a ruined mount, and away you go. So that's the main problem I've been having. So I'm going to put these together and I'll talk about the others while I'm at it. And I've got some stills that I can put up as well. So I'm going to follow what it says. So problems I've had. So I destroyed a walker motor, and I say I destroyed a walker motor because that is what happened. As I say, you can get carried away with these things, and I'd had a small tree, probably about 4 to 6 inches in diameter, fall over, and I noticed that the mower could get over it, and it can. And as it was going over it, it was taking off the branches and no problem whatsoever. But as it came off it, the back end dropped quite hard. And as you can imagine, I did this multiple times, yeah, you know. And eventually, what happened was in the gearbox, yeah, so the motor didn't fail. but in the gearbox something's going to give, and in my case a bearing gave, and once the bearing gave, then bits of bearing went into the gearbox, and bits of bearing which are hardened, and gears don't mix very well, and the next thing I'd stripped a gear and I'd lost the walker motor. And once you lose one track, there's only one way you're going, and that's downhill in a kind of arc motion. If you are the type of person who can learn from somebody else's mistakes, then good for you. So the mistake I then made was to try and recover, and I walked it all the way down the hillside into a fence, and then it would go no further. And this was at a time when the ground was particularly boggy, so I ended up having to skate out there and put a manual winch on it, winch the whole unit up onto my deck, and then order the parts I needed and wait for 6 weeks for the parts to come from China. I hadn't had it long enough to be okay with that. It annoyed me, but I'm not going to turn around and tell you, oh, you know, bad construction, this, that, because it wasn't. It was me being stupid. This is a mower. It's not a tank. It's not a recreational vehicle. It's not something that your kids should be riding on. It's a mower, and if you can't treat it the same as you would a push mower of the same ilk, then bits and bobs are going to break, and you need to be okay with that, and you need to be prepared for that. So once again, if you know, part of your spares list, I'd have a couple of walker motors. I notice on the newer version, I think it's a 600 that VTC550-90 Tech done, they've changed to worm and wheel motors, which are tougher. There is one advantage with mine, is that if you push hard enough you can push it along. I don't know how you're going to get on with a worm and wheel when pushing it along, because you don't tend to be able to get the motion back through. But what I will say is that the electric motors on it are 1000 watt. You can't buy 1000 watt electric motors on AliExpress. I've looked. You can only get half a watt, 500. And the motors did not fail. The gearbox failed, and it failed because I was bouncing it over a tree. So I think that's fair. The VTC550-90 Tech provided me with the gears that I wanted and the walker motors, so initially I just changed the gears. I'll show you stills of that, but unfortunately I wasn't diligent enough in cleaning, and I think I left a bit of muck in there, and a few months later that managed to get up into the small gear on the motor and it blew that. So at that point I swapped the whole walker motor. And the only problem I had with that is to detension the tracks. You need to get to the tensioner on the inside, so I got a special fitting to do that. So this is what I had to get. So it's a 14, and you put that into the end of a socket, or a socket extension in my case, and then you can hook that round and rotate, and that makes it possible to detension on the inside of the front. I think was where I had the most trouble, but you use it for the inside, the back as well. But as you can imagine, I mean, the thing's on the floor at the time and it weighs too much to pick up. I couldn't move it because I couldn't drive it anywhere, so it was on my back deck. But since then I lost, I managed to get a track off, and once again this is me just pushing the boundaries. I got the one track into some gravel, and I think a bit of gravel got in there, and managed to get the track off. This time I stopped, I thought about it, managed to get the machine into a position where I could put the track back on, got all my kit out there, loosened the tensioner off, put the track back on, tightened it back up again, gave it an extra 5mm for good luck, and because I'm not sure what tension to put on them, so you've just got to wing it. So I gave it an extra 5mm on the tensioner, and then tensioned the other track up to the same amount, and that's where I'm at the moment. So that was the walker motor. So get yourself some spare walker motors, because you know us boys and our toys, we play hard. One of the great things. So the other thing that I think is a design flaw, and I think it should be addressed, is the starter motor. So when you've got the remote control on your switch here, you switch all the way up and it engages the starter motor, and unless you bring that back to the middle position, the starter motor remains engaged. Now this is another one where if you listen to the machine and you know what it's supposed to sound like and something sounds odd, stop. Yeah. And if I'd done that, then all I would have done was turn the engine off and gone, oh, what was that? Started again and been in the dark for the rest of my life. But I didn't. I carried on thinking, well, that's a bit of an odd noise, wonder what it is. And then it stopped, and I carried on, and then I had to stop the mower and start it again. Of course, it wouldn't start again because my starter motor had turned into a kit form starter motor in several bits. It didn't work anymore. So once again, get on to China, order a starter motor, wait the 6 weeks for it to come. But I wasn't happy about this. I wasn't happy that you could leave that switch on. And so I first of all had to go with an Arduino to put a delay on it, so that it would run for about 2 seconds, the starter motor, and then until you actually disengaged the starter of the starter motor, it wouldn't go again. That shook itself apart and didn't work so well. So then I found a part on AliExpress, which I'll put a shot in now, and this you can program, and that's what's in my mower at the moment. It does 1.8 seconds, and then unless you actually take your finger off the starter button or pull that switch back to middle and go up again, it won't give you any more starter motor. So hopefully that'll stop me struggling with starter motors. But of course, you know, you have broken the golden rule. You put something in there that doesn't need to be there, but I'd rather have that there and be able to get a replacement for it, or be able to take it out the loop again, than keep ordering starter motors. And I have found myself since then where I've come to turn it off and that switch has been up in the up position. So I think that's a major design fault. So, you know, order yourself a starter motor. Let's say I'll put a link on for the part that I got from AliExpress and the programming number I did, and the resistor that I put in line as well, because the trigger on it is 24 volts and this generates 28, so you have to bring the voltage down a bit on the trigger. The power supply for it will cope up to 30, so you can hook the power for the relay in straight onto the voltage, but you need to drop the trigger, and you're intercepting that mark between the big relay that's in there, because the starter motor draws a lot of juice, so it's got this big square, I'll try and show a picture of that big square relay in it, and you're intercepting the feed into that and just allowing 1.8 seconds and then no more until you turn it off and go again. And since then I think I've had to do what I call a double start twice, and that was when it was very cold. But once that thing's been up and running and got warm, it'll start every time. It's quite scary. It reminds you that if you're going to go under there and mess with the blade to pull that spark plug connection, because I'm under no doubt that all that thing needs is one compression and it's going to go. So that's that. So I'm going to finish tightening this up. That's all it needs. So now, a bit more. So they can move now, and I think that's what yeah, that feels a bit sloppy. Just trying to get them all the same. Okay, so I've got that set up, and I'm going to fit that now. And I'll show you that fitting. So the thing I'll talk about is lights. So I'm into at least 3 lights now, maybe 4. I ordered some spares. And they came like this. And this kind of, I thought, oh, this is a giveaway. And they're actually trailer lights for lorry trailers. So I thought, oh right, I see. And this design to me looks a bit flimsy and breakable. And sure enough, you touch a tree with those and they just vanish. To be truthful, you don't need the lights, but they do look nice. Yeah. So, and it's nice to have things looking nice. So I'm saving those for if I ever sell it. So those being saved. And then I went onto AliExpress and I found these that look a bit tougher. So eventually I'm going to fit these. And those should be a bit more resistant, and we'll see how we get on with these. But you run into a tree, it's 100 kilograms at 4K. Now if you're an engineer, you can work out the impact. You're asking a lot. I've also thought about putting a piece of wood on here because they fasten on with these screws. I've got some longer screws to cope with the thickness of the steel, so that's going to be okay. And I think I'll still put a sticky pad on. And then if you want to, you can put a piece of wood on there and maybe a bit of foam rubber or something, just to try and protect this a bit more, if you're that emphatic about your lights. I am thinking stickers. I've done an oil change on this model. That wasn't too difficult. I've got some stills of that, I'll show you that as well. There was a bit of glisten in the oil, but the next one's at 50. I'm on 38 hours at the moment, so the next oil change at 50. I've done my air filter, that was fine. The other thing I've done is move the throttle because it was getting on my nerves. If you go under a bush, it changes the throttle. So I've added a piece of wood and fastened the throttle further down, and I'll show you a still of that, or a shot of that later. So yeah, that's my update. Do I regret buying the mower? No, not at all. No. What I was mowing with a push mower, I'm not a little man and I'm not fit, and it was starting to get to the point where it just swallows your weekend. If you're like a big guy like me and you don't want to walk up and down slopes with a mower, then this is your way forward, and if you've got the mechanical skills, then you're going to be fine. If you haven't got the mechanical skills, then get a friend who has, and who likes tinkering with the remote control stuff. You'll also notice on the side of my mower I've got some little bits of red tape, and that's next to the actuators for the deck, and when the actuators line up with the red tape, I know I'm at the right height. So that was given to me by a South African friend called Dennis. He suggested that to me. Wonderful idea. Nice and simple. And if you do get one, don't be frightened to take the back cover off. Don't be frightened to take it apart. It comes from China. It's cost you a hell of a lot in shipping. You're not going to be shipping it back. So any warranties that are on it, they're not going to send somebody else to repair it for you. If you brought it from a mower shop that's local, then you want to talk to them about the warranty, and if something goes wrong, obviously you need to deal with them. But if you've shipped it from China yourself, like you have with me, then you take it apart. Just be careful, keep good notes, and if you put it back together, it'll keep working. The engine itself hasn't given me any cause for alarm at all. It just likes to run. And I've cut grass with it on lower revs. I don't always put it up to full. So the power indicator at the back, you can watch that while you're mowing, and it'll show you how many volts is being drawn, and you can see that going up and down as you make it work hard, because all the power goes straight to the motor. And if it's dipping too much, then just rev the motor up a bit more, and away you go. As far as angles are concerned and slopes, I'll try and measure the ones I've done. The only time I flipped it is I climbed a fence with it, and that put it on its side, not straight over, thank God. And I managed to get it back, drive it down, and I should have taken the spark plug out and run it a few times, but I decided to see whether it would go over, because I expected to hydro lock, and it didn't. It just pushed all the oil out of the exhaust and created a nice big plume. So it's had that done as well. But the slope that it will go up and down, I don't feel putting it on. I don't feel comfortable with it. It doesn't feel right, and I think that's partly what saved me from tipping it over. Is I just look at it and go, no, I don't like that. And I tend to mow along my slopes. I don't go up and down. I tend to go side to side as if I was mowing it myself. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I don't know, because you're side loading the wheels, and because you're going backwards and forwards, I don't turn it round. Depending which way you're facing, you're going to wear the tracks at one particular point. So at some point, I dare say I'm going to wear the tracks, but the alternative is to wear the walker motors, making it go uphill excessively. So you've got to make your own mind up there. So yes, that's where I'm at with it. So I'm going to get this bad boy fitted, and then we're going to do some mowing. So I hope that's enough of an update. Thanks for watching.